There's a crazy interview with the commander-in-chief of the Ukrainian armed forces, who gave one to the Kyiv Independent from a few days ago that we wanted to make sure that we actually spent some time with, because it's extraordinarily revealing as to how the actual Ukrainians fighting this battle think about some of the things that we spend a lot of time debating here on Breaking Points. Do they really, Krystal, not care what we think, and they're just going to use our military aid and weapons to do whatever they want? Do they not care about escalation with Russia? The answer to both of those questions appears to be, yeah, they really don't. So let's put this up there on the screen. In terms of what he has said on Ukrainian strikes inside of Russia, quote, "It is up to us to decide how to kill this enemy." Now, once again, you could say that is true, but you can use your own weapons then. Oh wait, you don't have any of your own weapons. In terms of partners, he says, quote, "If our partners are afraid to use these weapons, we will kill with our own, but only as much as necessary." Once again, ridiculous. They have no industrial base. They don't have any of their own weapons. All of their weapons are provided to them by charity. They can't even afford them themselves because they basically have no economy. And he does make the point that we always try to emphasize here. He says, "To save my people, why do I have to ask someone for permission to what to do on enemy territory?" You don't. If you're able to make your own weapons, and you're able to supply your own military, and you're able to pay your own bills. But you actually can't do any of those. You are entirely dependent upon the charity of NATO and of the United States, really not NATO, but the United States. So in that case, yeah, you do have to listen whenever we tell you what to do, because we have stakes that are in the conflict. And they always want to have their cake and eat it too. And, I'm not the only one, actually, who thinks that the Ukrainians are ungrateful and they always have their hand out asking for more, even though when they're getting a historic amount of aid. I'm not sure if you saw this, Krystal, but Ben Wallace, who is the defense minister in the UK, gave an on-the-record statement saying, sometimes we'd like to see a little bit more gratitude at the NATO summit. And just that freaked out the Ukraine and NATO people, the Lithuanians, and Zelensky sarcastically was like, "Okay, we will say thank you. Is our thank you enough?" And it's like, it gets to the point of, look, the UK, in my opinion, they haven't sent nearly enough military aid relative to what we have, considering that they actually are on the continent. They are the great power. They have a massive economy. They have a real industrial base. You send it. Why do we have to do it? But even, compared to the rest of the European countries, Krystal, they've sent way more than anybody else. And so for them, they're like, look, our population supports you, but you got to say thanks, man. And this same thing happened with NATO membership. So Zelensky famously put out his angry tweet about NATO membership. And apparently, the United States, Biden, and the delegation was so miffed, they almost watered down the language at the last minute, inviting, I guess, eventual NATO membership. Now, I would say, though, that his ungrateful attitude works for a reason, which is in almost every case, nothing actually happens to Ukraine. They still get all the aid that they want. So why wouldn't you keep doing it if you sound like a whiny child? Yeah. On balance, he actually is getting everything he wants on paper, but there is still a bit of a fraying that is happening, I think, even amongst the most pro-Ukraine people who are involved in those decisions, because it's just the arrogance. It's the arrogance. It's the lack of gratitude. And, it's on-the-record statements like this from Ukrainian military commanders being like, you can't tell us what to do. And, yes, we can. We quite literally can whenever we're the ones who are paying all your bills.
So we could. Yeah, we just don't.
Yeah.
I mean, remember, there was a reporting like last summer about how Biden was getting irritated with Zelensky for exactly this reason, because it was just constant. It was just the sense of entitlement. But to me, the most chilling comments from this military commander, this Ukrainian military commander, is he says, listen, as soon as I have the means, I'll do something. I don't give a damn. Nobody will stop me.
Yes.
And he's right.
Yeah, he is right.
He's 100% right. We talked about this with the Kerch Strait Bridge, Ukraine taking responsibility for an attack on that bridge this week, and how that contrasts with fall or summer, when there was a similar attack on the bridge. And there was a little Ukrainian wink and a nod, but they didn't feel bold enough to actually take responsibility for that attack at this point. Now, between then and now, we've had all these attacks on Russian soil. We had direct attacks on the Kremlin, and there have been no repercussions in terms of all Ukraine has seen is continued escalation of our support. And, okay, we will send you the Abrams tanks. Okay, we will send you the F-16s. Okay, we will send you cluster bombs. So from their perspective, they're like, why should we hide it? Why should we do anything other than exactly what we want to do in this conflict? Again, I don't blame them. I don't blame them for having that view. I blame us for allowing what is a very dangerous situation to unfold. And the blasé attitude that some of these people have about potential nuclear war, I just cannot wrap my head around it. You know, we had an interview yesterday with former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson, who is a 2024 contender. Really grateful for his time. Super nice guy. Wildly differ from him on a whole variety of issues. But the thing that was most stark to me that he said is, you know, I asked him a question. All right, so are you concerned that we're going to get into a nuclear war, that we're risking nuclear war? And he said, we risk nuclear war every day.
Said we risk it every day.
I was like,
yeah, I was shocked.
That seems like a bad thing. Maybe we should try to decrease that risk. So the fact that we have, you know, from the beginning of this conflict, we have been sounding the alarms about the possibility of sleepwalking into a nuclear conflagration. And every step in this direction, every bit of Ukrainians feeling emboldened to take these really dangerous actions, risks drawing us directly into this conflict. You know, if there was a potential attack on a NATO country, God forbid, it risks, you know, Putin and Russia getting into a desperate situation where they create an escalatory ladder that it's very hard to get out of. And listen, I know that people are not as spun up about the nuclear risk as they were, for example, last fall when even Biden was talking about trying to avoid World War III. But make no mistake, this is still a nuclear armed superpower that is facing, you know, some at least domestic turmoil and instability, and we need not to take our eye off that ball.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's just one of those where you really shouldn't put it off to the side, because you just absolutely never know when something could burst to the fore. I mean, you know, the Ukrainians are one breakthrough away in some cases from actually increasing the risk, or vice versa. If they completely collapse and then they resort to some sort of, you know, crazy action like a gamble to try and get back into the game, that could increase it. So, you know, in a lot of ways, like the current stasis is probably the safest, but because the universe of options is so big, you know, in war, you never know what's going to happen. There's always risk there on the table as long as the conflict continues. So I think it's always important to keep it at top of mind. And you know, in the most cliched like phrase of all time, like when people tell you who they are, believe them. Like when he says, I don't give a damn what you guys think, believe them. I mean, imagine if you had military, like the U.S. military commander effectively saying this when somebody else was paying our bills, and somebody else was like, hey, man, like you shouldn't be doing that. And we were acting with such level of arrogance, it would be universally agreed that this is unacceptable. And yet these comments, they just fly completely under the radar. Nobody in the mainstream media, you know, picks it up. And apparently we're the only ones who can read, you know, an obvious interview here, which is actually given in English, just so everybody understands. You know, it's one of those where I don't know why it doesn't get the attention it deserves, but apparently it doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, we covered when those leaked, the Discord leaks came out, and it said in there one of the gating items that was keeping them from launching more attacks on Russian soil was that we hadn't provided them with the weapons to do it. And then, you know, this is information our government had. These were intelligence intercepts that our government had. They knew that, and they're like, yeah, we're going to give them F-16s anyway. It's fine. And so, yeah, his brazen, well, I'm going to do what I want to do is totally justified based on the fact that it reminds me when Hillary Clinton said she went to Wall Street and told them to cut it out.
That's right.
And they're like, okay, ladies, sure, we're going to do that. It's the same deal where, you know, we'll send our little please don't do that anymore.
Yes.
Please don't do that. We don't like it when you do that. You think that they care? No, because there's no consequences attached to it. So that's where we are.
Yeah, that's well said.
Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.